up in California, starting your family in a small coastal town, just moments away from the warm, sandy beaches, palm trees, and year-round sunshine. Now imagine selling most of what you own, packing the rest into a small trailer, and moving across the continent to Nova Scotia, where there's winter. Even in April, apparently. That's what my husband and I did 8 years ago with our 2 young children. And more than a few people have asked us, what were you thinking? I'm sure some of you just thought that right now. What we found is that intense change in the environment really piqued our curiosity. And we started to tune in ways that we hadn't before. We spent time in the forest, completely fascinated by what we saw. And since it was all so new to me, I was seeing the world through the eyes of a child all over again. And over time, by connecting to the nature in our new place, it became home. As we as a family started to get deeper into our study of the natural world, and really learn about the creatures around us and make it part of our family culture, I started to realize that increasingly we were strange. It seems that this idea of playing outdoors, learning about the native plants and animals right outside your door, and learning about the life cycles of even the teeniest creatures we found, these things that were once the norm have been pushed aside for scheduled lives, organized enrichment activities, and screens of various sorts. Now, I'm not anti-tech, but I think we need to strive for a balance. Studies are telling us that kids in North America spend upwards of 50 hours a week looking at some sort of screen. How do they even find time for that? So the question is, with this increase in the amount of screens in our lives, how is that impacting us? And why should we even care about connecting to our natural world and learning about nature? He's not a doctor. He should be. He's amazing. But Richard Louv, author of Last Child in the Woods, said a growing body of research links our mental, physical, and spiritual health directly to our association with nature in positive ways. Studies are showing that kids who have direct access to nature and outdoor play environments have greater problem-solving skills. They are more creative in their play. They're more civil to each other. And they actually have greater self-control. So, with all this increase in technology in our lives, and a growing fear of the outdoors and strangers our kids may encounter outside, along with a host of other factors, families need help building new habits to try to reconnect with nature. As I reflected back on our time that we spent getting to know Nova Scotia and the nature all around us, I realized that there were some things that we did to help us connect to the natural world, grow our relationship with our new home, and balance the ever-increasing presence of technology in our lives. One of the things that we did was we made it a priority to get outside and notice the nature nearby each day. And I can tell you that if this Southern California girl who did not see snow actually fall from the sky until she was 19, anybody can get outside, even in winter. So this can be really simple, even just taking a walk around your house, looking at your yard before you leave for the day, looking at the teeniest plant growing in a crack in the sidewalk, or playing I Spy nature games with the kids in the car as you're driving along. It will never get old to hear my kids call out when they see a bird or cloud formation or constellation while we're driving. Doug Ptolemy, author of Bringing Nature Home, said every little nature connection is rejuvenating and restorative, but it's best if it happens 100 times each day. So in order to have those 100 moments of nature connection, you have to focus on nature nearby. And on that note, when it comes to this concept of nearby nature, for very young children, we need to decrease our emphasis on big issues like climate change, endangered species, and the burning of the tropical rainforest. These are huge issues that can often instill a sense of hopelessness and confusion. Children need to develop a love of nature right where they find themselves. They need to be able to touch it, interact with it, and develop a relationship right there. One day when we were out on a walk, my daughter saw a dragonfly nymph crawling out of the lake onto the rocks. We stayed to watch that nymph emerge and become an adult dragonfly. Not only that, but my daughter reached out her hand, and that dragonfly crawled up onto her fingers, and it sat there on her hand for quite some time while she watched its glittering wings before it took off on its first flight into adulthood after 2 years on that lake. It came back around and landed on her shoulder before taking off again into adulthood. We will never forget that encounter. So there's a reason why so many kids today can identify more corporate logos or characters from their favorite collector card game than they can native plants and animals near their home. It's because they are lacking in nature encounters like this one. And we need to have those for them. And they are more common than you think when you're outside a lot. In fact, we've had plenty of encounters with dragonflies and many other creatures since that time. Now, many parents tell me that they don't know what to do with their kids because they don't know enough about nature when they're outdoors. And I tell them, let wonder lead the way. When my kids were young, we used to spend a lot of time at a small pond down the street from our house. Now, I use the word pond very loosely. It was actually a ditch between the railroad tracks and the road. I'm sure many of you are familiar with ponds like this. What that little ditch of a pond taught me is that wonder in nature can be found just about anywhere. My kids caught frogs, dragonfly nymphs, water scorpion, which I had no idea existed, and I saved you from showing you a picture of it. So these encounters often would lead my kids beyond wonder to want to know more. And that's where nature resources and projects came into our life. There are so many ways to connect and learn about nature through books, guidebooks, documentaries, the internet, and now apps on your phone. This is a great way to bridge the gap that's been left behind by our lack of interactions with our elders who once passed on common knowledge about our environment, and also a lack of written resources like guidebooks that you might find in the average home. My daughter loves documentaries. She adores Sir David Attenborough. In fact, our second fall in Nova Scotia, after having gone through one winter, I talked to the family about starting to get winter gear, and my daughter said, no, Mom. You do not need to buy me winter gear. I am not going out there all winter. I'm going to stay in and watch documentaries with David. She's my little Southern California girl to the core, and I think that may have been her way of saying, what were you thinking? Needless to say, her plan did not work out that way, but there have been numerous times where we have found something on the trail outside, and she has told us more about it based on what she has seen in a documentary, read in a book, or seen on the internet. So it's amazing what kids can learn when they're given the resources and encouragement. And these projects that we did, they were real-life science and investigation that the kids learned so much from. They were things like raising caterpillars, to watch them turn into butterflies. Or using the weather all around us to do art and science projects. Or my husband's personal favorite, when the kids decided they wanted to learn about the mosquito life cycle up close. But not to worry, those mosquitoes, when they became adults, the kids just fed them to the frogs they were raising. So it worked out perfect. Now, a lot of times we would find things and we'd be so fascinated we really wanted to share them with others, like this moth here that we saw laying eggs out on a walk with friends. So sharing and connecting about nature is a really great way to deepen your connection with nature and get the conversation going about nature connection. Sharing photos on social media can be a wonderful way to keep a nature journal, but it can also open up conversations and help you find a tribe of people who are also interested in deepening their connection to nature. A lot of people think that talking about the weather is small talk, but there's a reason why we connect over the weather, because it's a shared experience. It's one of the many ways that nature ties us together. Scott Sampson, author of How to Raise a Wild Child, said, "Nature connection thrives alongside people connection." Shared experiences and stories bind us together and can also help us bind to nature as well. Now, all of these are ways to bond with your natural world and to deepen that connection. But not everyone has access to safe, natural places. In order for this to change, we need to make a shift. And as each person deepens their connection to nature, that shift will occur. Teachers will begin bringing more nature into their curriculum, creating outdoor classrooms and planting school gardens. Urban planners and developers will start to see nature as a cornerstone of design. Parents will take their children outside more and demand more outdoor time for them at school. Doctors will start writing prescriptions for nature time. Yes, it's already happening. Nature is one way that brings humanity together, regardless of philosophy, religion, politics, or country of origin. It is part of us. Andy Goldsworthy, the environmental artist, said we often forget that we are nature. Nature is not something separate from us. So when we say we've lost our connection to nature, we've lost our connection to ourselves. By connecting to our new home in Nova Scotia, we became a part of it, not set apart from it. And we could imagine our future there. We were invested in our new home. Richard Louv talks about imagining a better future, setting aside all the post-apocalyptic images that we see in the media today, and imagining a future where humans and nature interact as it should be, even in the biggest cities. In order to make that happen, we adults need to make the shift. We need to make it a habit of connecting to our natural world, because our kids see us. They mimic us. They tune in to what we find important. So, what were we thinking by moving to Nova Scotia? Well, we were thinking of a different future for our family. And what we've learned is that we can actually have that future just about anywhere if we tune in to our place on this vast planet. So imagine seeing your world through the eyes of a child again. Imagine taking a child out on a walk in nature and letting wonder lead the way. Learn and share. Imagine a better, brighter future for our children wherever they live. So I challenge you, for the next 30 days, get outside every day, even for just 15 minutes, and see what happens. Make it a habit of connecting to nature every day. It could just change your world. Thank you.